At the 24 Hours of Le Mans circuit, on June 11th, 1955, the battle raged at the front of the race until one of the cars, going 240 kilometers per hour, broke apart on the grandstands, leaving 82 people dead and over 120 injured. It was the deadliest disaster in motorsport history. Thanks to several investigations, the cause of the crash is now known, down to the second. But why was there such a high death toll? "70 years after the disaster, Le Monde has accessed original archive footage. The amateur footage, shot as close to the circuit as possible, gives an insight into how the world's most famous race became a fatal event. January 1949. In a few months' time, the 24 Hours of Le Mans will make its comeback. Closed during the Second World War, the circuit had been badly damaged by bombings. Almost everything had to be rebuilt. Construction workers had a big task at hand. The return of the race in Le Mans was a return to normal life. It was a popular event to forget the war. Sugar, coffee, and petrol were still rationed. But race cars could go at full speed. This is rare footage shot on the circuit. It was entrusted to the Normandy Cinematheque, a non-profit organisation that preserves and digitizes amateur footage.
Les films viennent de Normandie, de France et puis d'Europe. Ce sont des dons qui sont apportés sur place ou quelquefois, même assez souvent expédiés, très bien emballés. Et la plupart du temps, les films que l'on reçoit sont des films de mariage, de vacances à la montagne, au bord de la mer.
And among the hundreds of films saved each year by the organisation were these two reels.
Là, ce qui est plutôt particulièrement intéressant, c'est que c'est un film tourné pour être projeté à un petit public. Et puis c'est sur Le Mans, alors là, c'est en 1949.
Jean-Louis Goczynski and Jean-Jacques Maserati, two amateur filmmakers from Le Mans, were behind the camera.
Bon, là, je vais la remonter. C'est une Erxam des années 50.
C'est français ?
Oui, c'est français. Alors, avec un chargeur de film comme ça, on tourne à peu près 1 minute et demie.
Ça coûtait cher pour l'époque ?
C'est comme si on tournait un film aujourd'hui de 3 minutes, ça coûterait 50 €.
Et j'appuie où ?
Ici, tu visais là et tu appuies là.
Why did these two amateur filmmakers shoot the circuit's construction work?
Je pense que leur intention était de réaliser un reportage sur Le Mans et c'est très bien monté et c'est tourné par un amateur, donc il y a un autre regard que le cinéma officiel. C'est vraiment, vraiment formidable.
It was the most famous circuit in the world, with more or less the same layout as before the war. There's the tricky Tertre Rouge, Mulsanne, Indianapolis and Arnage Bends, the endless Mulsanne Straight, and the redesigned technical pits. It was on this same circuit 6 years later that the worst disaster in the history of motor racing would unfold. It's June 11th, 1955.
60 entries of cars and drivers from many nations started on the 24 Hours road race at Le Mans in France.
In the first hour of the race, the star drivers for Jaguar, Mercedes and Ferrari did not let up. Unable to match their power, the other cars couldn't keep up with the frantic pace of these circuit stars. This was one of the main causes of the disaster, which happened at 6:28 p.m. At the entrance to the pit straight, Britain's Hawthorne was driving at 250 kilometres per hour. On the left, he overtook the Austin Healey driven by Lance Macklin, who was driving at close to 190 kilometres per hour. But suddenly, Hawthorne fell back in front of Macklin and crashed his Jaguar equipped with disc brakes, a brand new technology. Macklin swerved hard to the left to avoid him. His car was only equipped with the less efficient drum brakes. Behind Macklin were the number 20 Mercedes of Frenchman Pierre Levegh and number 19 Mercedes of Argentina's Juan Manuel Fangio. What happened next unfolded in just 4 seconds. Levegh raised his arm to warn Fangio of the danger. Fangio turned, but it was too late for Levegh. The Frenchman's car clambered over Macklin's, flew off and bounced off a concrete structure. Debris from the front of the car rammed into the audience. Pierre Levegh died instantly. The crowd was in complete chaos, and the death toll already numerous. Filmed at the time of the circuit's construction, the previously unseen amateur footage viewed by Le Monde shed light on one of the reasons behind the disaster: the safety conditions of the circuit. The circuit's layout had hardly changed since 1932, but the performance of cars had exploded. In the mid-50s, some cars reached speeds of 280 kilometers per hour, sometimes in places where there was little separation between the cars and those watching. In terms of safety, as early as 1949, organisers built fascines to protect the public.
C'est quoi une fascine? Eh bien, c'est un bloc de terre, de sable précisément, compacté, qui est tenu par des branches de châtaignier qui sont tressées et qui vont avoir un effet d'absorption des chocs si jamais une voiture vient à les percuter. C'était l'usage des types de protection qui existaient sur une très grande majorité, si ce n'est la quasi-totalité des circuits dans le monde. Quand c'était pas ça, ça veut dire qu'il n'y avait rien.
2,500 meters of low cement wall and no less than 25,000 meters of barbed wire were also used to separate the crowd from the 13.5 kilometer long modern circuit, complying with the safety standards of the time. According to the press at the time, it was an absolutely remarkable and effective protection system, particularly on the bends. But the safety protocols could not keep up with the growing success of the race in Le Mans. Since 1949, crowds of thousands pressed up against the fascines, while hundreds of others would climb onto their chairs. Just over 1 meter high, the fascines were more decorative than protective. All the more inconvenient, given the frequency of runoffs. Between 1949 and 1955, 4 drivers were killed on the circuit in the middle of a race. After the June 1955 disaster, the organisers of the 24 Hours of Le Mans launched a huge project to make the circuit safer.
C'est une ampleur de travaux qui est similaire finalement à celle de la reconstruction en 1949.
The pits were moved back by 15 metres, widening the road and leaving more room for the cars to speed past the stands. The stands were also redesigned in order to ensure public safety. Despite the previous year's 82 deaths, the 1956 race was even more popular with the public.